Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 274, I think. It's a confusing place. Once you get over the number 10, which is something that we practice a lot on our fingers at school, life gets very confusing. And now the show's over 200, everything's very confusing. So a while ago, there's been a bit of a theme with the show that we've needed more female power on the show. People have said, Ben, you need more ladies flying the flag. And it's true. You look at the big fitness events, there's still men dominating the stage. Men are still the driving force behind fitness education, but it is changing. There's a lot more big female voices out there. There's a lot more females doing great things, really sharing their stories, being a lot more raw and honest and open and vulnerable, which is exactly what fitness needs, because fitness has acted on the egos of few for a long time, and it's good to see that is starting to kind of fall away, and we're getting a lot more honesty in fitness. So today's guest is someone along those exact lines, doing some incredible things across the pond. I think she said she's in Lexington, which actually means nothing to me because America's massive. It could be anywhere. I just know where New York is and San Diego is. That's it. Molly Galbraith, welcome to the show. Hello.
Thank you for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it. In case you're wondering where Lexington is, we are the northernmost, westernmost part of the Southeast. What do you think about that?
You can't even visualize that. The northernmost, westernmost, southeast.
Part of the Southeast. So like Kentucky. So you've got Ohio, and you've got Tennessee, and then you've got like West Virginia. You've got typically Southeast, but we're trying not to be. You know what I mean?
Through that last 10 seconds of you speaking, the sound went on Skype, and it sounded like you were just singing a song because you just ended up going. It was funny.
How do you know that's not what I was doing?
Touche.
That's pretty presumptive there, Ben.
That is, you're right. Ow. She got me. Molly, people need to know who you are. You've had a very inspiring story in fitness. You are someone that has been very vulnerable about your journey, and I would say that's a large reason why people have bought into your message and what you're trying to do, the movement that you are creating. Give us some background. What has happened from the start till now?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, I'm co-founder and owner of Girls Gone Strong, and we are a worldwide global movement of over 500,000 women from 70 countries around the world. And over the last 6 years, we've been really dedicated to providing evidence-based, body-positive, sustainable nutrition training and self-care information for these women. And more recently, and it's information by women for women, which is really unique. As you said, for a long time, men have kind of been leading the charge in the fitness industry, and very little information was geared specifically towards women, and the information that wasn't even coming from women. It doesn't mean men can't provide good information. It's just different. You know, someone who's kind of lived this experience and lived in this body provides the information a little bit differently and from a different perspective. And we need more women voices. So we've been doing that for the last 6 years, and now we are starting to educate coaches and trainers on how to better understand, connect with, and serve their female clients. So we have this massive community of women, so many resources, so much feedback from them, and it's given us a really unique perspective on their perceptions of their interactions with their coaches and trainers. So we're taking that information and turning around and teaching other coaches and trainers how to serve women better, which is what we're really passionate about. So I got my start as a competitive gymnast and a cheerleader. Well, not a competitive cheerleader. I was a competitive gymnast, and I was a cheerleader growing up, which I'm almost 6 feet tall. So that's hilarious if you think about me having been a competitive gymnast for 5 years. And then at the end of high school and beginning of college, I got pretty sedentary. I gained quite a bit of weight. And in 2004, I was 19 years old, and I decided that I wanted to get in shape. And just kind of like a lot of people, their story, they kind of hit what they would consider their rock bottom. They say, this is enough. I want to do something. I want to change my life, change my body. And for me, the interesting thing was I liked, I was doing well in school. I liked my friends. I liked my professors. I liked my job. The one thing that I was unhappy with was the thing that in that moment I had the most control over. And that was what I ate and what I did with my body. And so I decided that I was going to get in shape, started working out with a personal trainer, did that for about 6 weeks. But as a poor college student, couldn't really afford to do that for very long. So I saw some results. About 8 months later, I started dating a trainer at the gym, which is much more economical. He was a powerlifter and bodybuilder. So I was thrust into the world of really intense exercise very quickly. And by 2005, I had competed in my first powerlifting meet. In 2006, 7, and 8, I competed in figure competitions. And every time I competed in figure, I rebounded really badly afterwards. I gained a significant amount of weight. I struggled to control my eating. And after my first 2 shows, this is 2006 and 2007, for me, the only way I knew how to, like, quote unquote, get my body back was to compete again. And so it was this awful roller coaster of, get really lean, deprive myself. And this was 2006. So, I mean, I was doing the 900 calorie a day, 2 hours a day of cardio type of like training. Cause I mean, at the time, the person I was working with possibly didn't know any better. So that's the type of training and nutrition I was following. And then after my show in 2007, I gained quite a bit of weight. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this back under control. So I worked for about a year and a half to get my calories way up, just kind of what felt like heal my body a little bit, let it rest and recover. 2008, I was eating the most I'd ever eaten. I was the leanest I'd ever been. And I was like, I'm going to do another figure competition. Such a bad decision. I competed for the last time in 2008, and that show was different. At the end of that show, I gained about probably 20 or 25 pounds almost overnight. I became very physically depressed. I had a hard time getting up off the couch to get a glass of water because it felt like an insurmountable task. I was 24 years old, and I couldn't get off the couch to get a glass of water. And I went to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune hypothyroidism, PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and adrenal issues. And so between 2009 and 2012, I worked really hard to kind of get my health back under control. That was a really devastating time for me because since 2004, I had been able to kind of control what my body looked like based on what I was eating and how I was exercising. And all of a sudden, my body was totally out of my control again. I looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself. And that was really hard because I had gotten used to being like that really fit, lean girl. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of knew me as that. And so that was really challenging. And so at that point in time, I felt like if I couldn't control the way my body looked, if I couldn't be a really lean girl, I was going to be the really strong girl. So I decided to compete in powerlifting again. I mustered all of the energy that I had, which wasn't much, and I trained for a powerlifting meet. So I competed in 2009, and that was a great experience. I PR'd my deadlift. I, really enjoyed feeling strong and decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get strong. Worked on my strength for about 8 months. Realized that I had built a big house of strength on an itty bitty foundation, and I wasn't getting a lot stronger. So I went to see a couple guys named Mike Robertson and Bill Hartman in Indianapolis at Indianapolis Fitness and Sports Training, and they were like, "Congratulations, you just deadlifted 341 pounds with your quads and your lower back. Let's see if we can get you some glutes and some hamstrings and a core and see what happens." So I worked with them for a while, and I had great results. 2012 rolled around. I was feeling good. My body was feeling good. I had, started feeling more comfortable in my skin, gotten stronger, started getting my health under control, and life was good. And then on January 4th, 2012, my dad unexpectedly passed away. That guy right there. I found out he was sick on a Saturday and he died on a Tuesday of pneumonia at 64. And about 2 weeks after that, I was in the gym deadlifting and I injured my back. And that kicked off 2 years of chronic back pain. And then about 8 months after that, I left a 6-year relationship. And I moved home with my mom and my stepdad. So I was, 28 at that time. My dad had died. I was having chronic pain. I was trying to get this thing called Girls Gone Strong off the ground. And I was living at home with my parents. And I was feeling like the world's biggest failure. I had gained quite a bit of weight at that point, I ended up about 1.5 pounds away from where I had started. So to be, 9 years into a journey and feel like that you've failed and feel like that everything that you've done is for naught, and that who am I to be the owner of a company called Girls Gone Strong, it was really devastating for me. And it was compounded because by 2013, I was getting a lot of comments from people. I had a bit of an small internet following at that point. I was getting comments from people on the internet saying, "Why aren't you lean anymore? I don't understand what happened to your body." I had a brick and mortar gym at the time. I had a woman in my community telling other women not to come to my gym because they might look like me.
Wow.
And I had a male fitness professional, a colleague, come to my gym, stand in my office, and insinuate to my staff that I was fat. And let me be clear. Speaking about women's bodies in that way is never okay. But, the absurd thing is that I'm almost 5'11". I was 183 pounds, maybe a size 10, still quite muscular. And it just, at that moment, was such a light bulb for me that this pedestal, or this just crazy narrow context of like what's okay and fit and beautiful that we give women is just ridiculous. And so it was in 2013 that I decided I needed to heal my relationship with my body, heal my relationship with food. Had kind of a roller coaster relationship with food for a while, and it's been a crazy last 4.5 years. But that's really what I've been doing, and that's when I became most passionate, not just about giving women good nutrition and training information, but teaching them to love themselves. Because, and then that sounds kind of trite, but it's true. So many women come to us and they don't feel comfortable in their bodies. They don't like their bodies. They don't trust their bodies. They're angry at themselves and their bodies. And they have this incredibly narrow definition of what's okay. You Google fit woman, right? And who shows up? Young, blonde, ripped, white, looks, like really like nice clothes. Like it just, this idea of what we have that we think fitness looks like makes so many people feel like fitness isn't for them. And that's something that we're really passionate about changing at Girls Gone Strong, is showing that fit and healthy and strong comes in so many packages in so many ways, and that fitness is for everybody, whether that's powerlifting, whether that's walking around your block 3 times a week, whether that's eating more vegetables, whether that's counting your macros. We want health and fitness to feel accessible to everybody. So that's really what we've been working on doing at Girls Gone Strong over the last 4 or 5 years, is showing a wide variety of body shapes and sizes and helping women specifically feel like fitness is for them.
See, at this point in the interview, I'm actually really struggling because there's so many areas I want to take this conversation in, because you've just opened up so much. But I think the thing that's at the front of my mind, and it's because I'm listening to this audio book at the moment, is a book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. And this is a mindset that I've had for a very long time. I was a childhood actor, and as someone that was obese and unhealthy, etc. myself, I always had to find a way to, find some level of admiration and be successful in my career. And whether that was fake or not is not the point at the moment. The point is, for me, the obstacle was the way at that point in time, and I've always seen that. And your story, you've hit a roadblock 4 or 5 years ago. The obstacle for you is the way. So tell me where, because you talked a lot about drawing strength, but you haven't told me really yet where you drew that strength from. Previously, when you went from figure to powerlifting, you were like, well, I'm just going to get strong. And now you're like, well, I'm staring this thing in the face. Now I'm going to, surmount this thing. Where did the strength come from? What did it look like?
Therapy, no lie, years and years and years of therapy.
Okay.
And I talk really openly about that because I think that there's a big stigma around mental health. It was about, 8 or 9 years ago now that I started going to therapy. And the reason I went was because the guy I was in the 6-year relationship with, I struggled being vulnerable with him. And the joke now is that therapy worked too well because now I'm vulnerable all over the internet. So it's like I like went the totally other direction. I like couldn't tell him I cared about him, and now I'm like sobbing online. So yeah, I started doing that about 8 or 9 years ago, and it has been the single best act of self-care I have ever engaged in. I've always been a pretty emotionally resilient person. So I think that that's something that I was kind of born with, but have been able to kind of hone that skill. But yeah, so the strength has come from therapy and continually working on myself and recognizing that everything's going to be okay, that I'm just enough as I am. That was really challenging for me, and even something I have to really check in with myself about on a regular basis, because I had put so much of my identity in being really lean and then being really strong. And then, what was it going to be if I wasn't going to be really lean, if I wasn't going to be really strong? And even today I have to check myself and say, hey, if I didn't have Girls Gone Strong, if I wasn't doing the thing that I loved with my work and my business, would I still be okay with who I am? And that's a question that I have to like really stop and ask myself on a regular basis to make sure that I don't feel like I'm good enough or that I'm okay because I have this external thing, because that external thing can be taken away from you at any point in time. And so it's continually doing that inside work. And for me, it took the help of a professional, which has been really, really powerful. But it took that inside work of getting to a point where I was okay with myself, regardless of what my body looked like, of whether my business or my organization was successful, of whether I was in a relationship, whether I was living at home with my parents or whatever. I had to be okay with being who I am in any given circumstance at any given time.
I think the hardest sort of segue with what you've just talked about is that we have to, and I am 100% on board with you, we have to get to a place of self-love and appreciation. And I'd say it's probably about 2 years ago in the UK, there was a big thing around sort of like fat shaming and like everyone's, everyone deserves to be loved and their body is their body and all that kind of stuff. And like, I bought into that to a degree, but I stood there as a healthcare practitioner and I said, that is all well and good. But when you're in front of a client and that client or that individual is 3, 4, 5 stone overweight, which is going to affect their cardiovascular health, their potential to get diabetes, all that kind of stuff that we know as healthcare practitioners, it's a little bit of a really hard conversation to kind of get across that we need to be in this place of self-love, but we also need to be in this place where we are striving for our health. And actually self-love comes and boils down to the fact that we want to do the best thing by our body. So we then choose to take positive action towards our health. I'm just wondering how you kind of come at both those angles to kind of get the buy-in from people that are kind of on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting conversation, and actually something that I was looking into last night, because I saw a meme that was like, if you love your body, you'll take care of it, or something like that. And I think that, so here's the thing. Number one, we know for certain that we can't tell what someone's habits look like simply by the way their body looks. So the preliminary research that we've done at GGS, one of the biggest things that women talk about is being underestimated based on their body size. So we have women in our community that are, 200 pounds or 250 pounds or whatever, who engage in, strength training 3 to 4 times a week. And, they do yoga and they walk and, they've been working on their nutrition and they eat a lot of vegetables and all of these kinds of things. And so, what I'm most concerned in, what I'm more concerned in is, in terms of like my clients or the people in my community, is that they're engaging in good self-care habits rather than specifically what their body looks like. Mm-hmm. And so we know first that we can't say what someone's self-care habits look like based on how their body looks. Number two, I feel like it's not my job as a fitness professional to convince people to want to change their body, right? People need to be ready, willing, and able if that's something that they're interested in. So we do a lot of body autonomy work at Girls Gone Strong, which means I'm in charge of me and you're in charge of you, and that's kind of the end of the story. You get to make the decisions you want for yourself. I get to make the decisions I want for myself. And so for me, I don't feel like my job as a fitness professional is to convince people that there's something wrong with their bodies that they need to fix. But instead, my job as a fitness professional is to help meet people where they are, figure out what they're willing to do and not willing to do, and to make fitness more accessible for them. So I'm less concerned with looking at people whose body shapes or sizes fall into the category of overweight or obese or, whatever. And I'm more concerned with saying, hey, fitness is for everybody, and that includes you. And here are the ways that you can integrate fitness into your life that feel more accessible to you. So instead of spending my time worrying about people who don't seem interested in changing their bodies, I'm more concerned with helping get information to people who are. Again, I don't feel like I can look at a particular person and say, you're this body size, like this is horrible. You don't care about yourself. Like, I don't know any of those things about that person. That's, again, very, very presumptive. I'm more concerned with people who do feel like they want to make some change in their bodies, who are struggling with chronic disease or, issues, or want to get stronger, whatever it is, and making fitness feel like it's something that they can partake in. So for me as a fitness professional, I don't feel like my job is to let people of a certain body shape or size know that what they're doing is unhealthy. That doesn't feel like that has anything to do with my mission. What my mission is providing information that helps women get specific results, that's evidence-based, that's body positive, that's not shaming them. We've actually have a couple articles on Girls Gone Strong, one called Why Shaming Anybody is Bad for Everybody, and we talk about just judging women on both ends of the spectrum. The author has been overweight, and she has a sister who is almost dying from anorexia. So she talks about, the abuse that her sister got for being too thin. And we also have another one that talks about why fat shaming doesn't promote health and what you can do instead. We talk about, like, if you really care about someone, there are things you can do other than pointing your finger at them saying, like, you're overweight and that there's a problem with that. So for me, again, not my job to seek out people who aren't interested in changing their bodies and try to convince them that there's something wrong with them. My job is to provide information that makes fitness and health feel more accessible and doable for their everyday life.
So, considering accessibility, which when we were off air, we were talking about the fact that you've been doing some recent research that you don't feel fitness, and I would agree, I don't feel fitness is accessible enough for a lot of people. There are a lot of barriers that people have that they wish there wasn't there. People don't like walking into gyms. When people say the word CrossFit, they think of certain things, just like lifting weights. Talk to me about some of the research you're currently doing and what it's showing us, and maybe what the kind of fitness industry or culturally we need to start to look at to actually just get people more fitter.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so much to talk about there. The research that we did was specifically in women interacting with their coaches and trainers. And the interesting thing is of the women who responded to the research, there were about 70% male trainers that these women were talking about, and about 30% female trainers. And the kind of mistakes that they were making were the same, which was really interesting. I felt like that there would be a big discrepancy between the things that women were doing to turn off other women and the things that men were doing to turn off women to the gym. But even a step deeper than that, because these are women who are working with coaches and trainers who are interested in their health, who care enough to seek out a coach or trainer, and they are being embarrassed or shamed by comments that their trainers are making about their bodies, even seemingly positive comments, which is a really challenging thing and kind of leads us back to the, hey, don't comment on a woman's body, no matter what you think is, like if you're like, hey, you've lost weight, or like, for example, we're working on a pre and postnatal coaching certification right now, and people will be like, oh my gosh, you don't even look pregnant. Think about all the layers associated with that. You don't even look pregnant, as if looking pregnant is a bad thing, as if you're complimenting her because her body doesn't look pregnant, as if the most miraculous thing she's doing in her life right now is not looking pregnant. Like, she's creating a human, right? And we're complimenting her for not looking pregnant. And what if she has lost a baby? What if she's miscarried? What if she has, had a discussion with her doctor because she's not gaining enough weight and she's worried about what that means for the outcome of her pregnancy? Like, you don't know. You know what I mean? So, like, for a lot of people, like, you don't look pregnant sounds like a great compliment to a woman who's 4 or 5 months along, but you have no idea what's going on behind that. And so for us, and the stuff that we're doing at Girls Gone Strong in terms of educating coaches and trainers and educating both men and women, we're trying to help them see, like, that a person's experience in their body and in their life informs their perception of everything, all of their interactions with you. And so, I've had completely different interactions as a young, white, educated, able-bodied, cisgender, heterosexual woman. Like, I've had totally different experiences in my body than someone who falls in different categories or checks different boxes. And so we're trying to, like you talk about, some people are scared to walk into a gym. Some people are scared to walk in their neighborhood because they don't live in a nice neighborhood. We can say, like, oh, just go for a walk outside. Like, people who live in certain neighborhoods, that's not safe for them. We tell people, like, eat more vegetables or buy organic. It's like, that's not accessible to everybody, and we can be like, oh, if they really wanted it, then they would do it. And it's like, yeah, but, you know what I mean? Like, some people are choosing between vegetables and diapers, and we can get into a much bigger discussion about what that means about their life choices and all of these other things. But how can we make it more accessible to people today? And so we've got some articles on Girls Gone Strong. One of them is called the intersection, Who Gets to Be Fit? The Intersections of Fitness. And it's a Latina women's studies professor named Dr. Larissa Mercado Lopez, and she studies essentially how intersectionality, or race, gender, class, ability level, education, how that intersects with fitness and what we as fitness professionals can do to make it more accessible to people. It's a pretty cool article if people are interested in learning more.
I know that you have a huge amount of good articles on your website, so people do need to go to your website and have a read around. If anything on this show is going, do you know what? Yes, I need to have a look at that stuff. One of the really, really key things I think you just picked up on I coach a lot of trainers as well, and one of the things I'm mega passionate about is a trainer being able to stand back, and this is the exact same for anyone else. Anyone being able to stand back and being critical and honest about their environment. And one of the things that I picked up on when you were going through your story is that, you quickly got into powerlifting because you got into a relationship with the powerlifter. And how many people do we know that join a CrossFit box and within 18 months, they are CrossFit. They are CrossFit defined. They've got the socks, they've got everything. They really get into the environment. And, people have to look, we have to stand back and look at everything from the moment our alarm goes off to the type of sound that our alarm has when it goes off, to the action that we have when we get up, when we go downstairs, when we go to work, that we eat. Every bit of that programs our success outcome. And it's the same with the brain. What key areas, I suppose, if we looked at this from a win perspective, how can we get people to win out of this podcast today? What do you think of maybe like the 3 environmental areas that people have to work on to get right that allows a lot of other stuff to get right?
Oh my goodness, that's a really, really big one. The 3 environmental factors they have to get right. I think that's really tricky to say because I think it's going to be different for everybody. Okay. When we're tackling like changing your environment and changing your habits and stuff with our clients at GGS, we have to figure out the personality of that person. Are they someone who is going to be more motivated by seeing results more quickly? Are they going to be someone who's motivated by tackling something that feels a little bit challenging? Or are they going to be someone who really needs the lowest hanging fruit? You know what I mean? Are they someone who's going to, for example, if they're going to change their eating or to try to improve their nutrition in some capacity, are they someone who needs the bar set pretty low for them so that they can build some successes and wins really quickly and start feeling more motivated right out of the gate? Or are they going to be someone who feels like they need to see some results a little bit more quickly in order to stay motivated? I think it's really important to know thyself. for some people, for example, cleaning out their fridge and not having any like food that they don't want to eat in their cabinet is really important for them because they've tried and they're not someone who can control themselves around the food, having the food in their house. For me, I feel like that I don't want to be avoiding being around certain foods for the rest of my life. So I got to the point where it was important to me to be able to kind of challenge myself to have it in the house and not eat it. So, you know what I mean? I think that everyone's kind of perspective on the things in their life, the actions, the skills that they need to hone, and the way that they approach them are going to be really, really different. So I think it's kind of challenging to say what the 3 specific environmental factors would be, but you're exactly right. We get in this habit. There's this kind of habit loop of like, this is like, we make thousands of decisions throughout the day. And a lot of them we don't even know that they're decisions, right? They're just things that we do or habits that we get into, routines that we engage in. And then if we, are in a routine or in a habit of doing things that don't serve us or, habits that don't help us get closer to our goals, it can take a lot to kind of interrupt that routine or that habit. And so, yeah, I think that can be a really important thing to change your environment. But I think it's tough to say what those 3 most important things would be.
No, I agree. I suppose, for me, I think the mind always has to come first because the mind just controls every other environment. And really the biggest thing that you picked up on is people being honest with themselves about their natural character traits and tendencies that they need to look at and appreciate. And it's not coming from a negative place, is it? We're not saying this part of your character is bad. Like, we need to try and like ignore it and brush it under the carpet. We need to accept it, say, right, that's me. And now I'm going to work out the best possible strategy to get the most positive outcome from that character trait.
Well, and I think it's really important too, as fitness professionals, it feels so important to us, right? It feels like this thing that we want, like, I always liken it to like finding religion. It's like you find Jesus, then you want everybody else to find Jesus too, right? It's like this thing that we want to preach the gospel of health and fitness because it feels so important to us. But I think, depending on who you're working with, I think it's really important to realize like not everyone feels that way about it. And that's okay. Every person that comes in has a different set of goals, priorities, desires, resources, things they're willing to give up, things they're not willing to give up. And I think that, that's okay. And like you said, being honest with yourself, like, hey, I really care about wine. This is not for me specifically. I don't really drink alcohol, but but people were like, hey, I like wine's really important to me. And I think I could be a couple pounds leaner if I didn't want to have a glass of wine or 2 every other night. But like, I'm not going to give that up and that's okay with me. So like you said, being honest with yourself about who you are, but also being honest about what are your goals? Like, is your goal to be super shredded? That's going to require a totally different set of priorities and resources. Is your goal to like be good enough? You know what I mean? Like when I was having back pain, chronic back pain, and even for the last couple of years, as I've put a lot of my time and energy into Girls Gone Strong, my goals have been to not be terrible. You know what I mean? Like literally, that's been my goal. I want to be pretty strong. I want to be in pretty good shape. I want to eat pretty well. I want to feel comfortable in my clothes. And that's kind of it. Because for me, I had a limited amount of resources or shits to give, essentially, because my time and energy was going into something else. And I think that for a lot of people, one of the biggest issues that the women in our research study reported was coaches and trainers who push an all or nothing mentality. So they make you feel like you're all in or you're not, like you're doing it or you're not dedicated. And I think that's really challenging for people because even if someone can work out 5 or 6 days a week on a really regular basis and challenge themselves and challenge their bodies, there will probably be a time in their life where they have to change that routine. And if in your mind you think that the only way is to train 5 or 6 days a week, then when you get to that point, when you have your first child, when you're going to law school, when you lose a parent, when you go through these challenging life circumstances, if you don't realize that it's okay to just get in the gym or be at your house and move your body around once or twice a week for that period of time, then like a lot of people kind of fall off the wagon completely. You know what I mean? Like they think they're off the wagon. They think that if I can't do this, What's the point? So I'm going to do nothing. And then 3 years pass and they haven't done anything in 3 years. And so a couple of years ago at an event I was speaking at, I was talking to the audience and I'm like, I don't care if you go to the gym today and I don't care if you go to the gym tomorrow. I care that you're in the gym 20 years from now. You know, if you can move your body, if you can exercise, if you can strength train or whatever 2 times a week for the next 20 years, you're crushing it. Like you're absolutely crushing it. And again, there might be times in your life when your goals that you have for yourself align more closely with working out almost every day, and that's fine. But figuring out what your goals are, what your priorities are, what your desires are, and what resources you have to put towards those, and being really honest with yourself about it and saying, I am willing to give this up or I'm not willing to give this up is really important.
I'm going to be selfish for a minute and ask for some actual advice because I think this is interesting and hopefully people will learn something from it. So I, like you, coach big groups online, and it's nutrition and training, and we go on basically an 8-week journey. And the one post that I try, or I hope that we don't see a lot of in the group, is when people say, oh, I've had a bad weekend, I've fallen off the wagon, you know, I'm trying to get back on it. And then people are like searching for a pearl of wisdom, or, you know, that bit of advice is just going to make it all go away. And I've actually thought about saying to them at the beginning of the journey, falling off the wagon, being off plan, all of those words are banned.
I've actually told people there is no wagon, but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
and when we approach this situation, we have to say, right, things weren't great yesterday, and tomorrow they can be better, and this is how I'm going to make them better. And I've not gone in there with the sledgehammer and said we're banning this kind of language, because I'm not sure as a coach if it's right yet. But you seem like you've got great kind of background here, and I kind of want to ask what you would do in my situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that going in and so here's the thing, okay? And this is, you just set off a hand grenade, right? This thing that's going to turn into something way bigger. So this kind of reminds me of the when women talk to their trainer and they say, I'm afraid I'm going to get bulky. And trainers say, that's stupid, that's ridiculous, women can't get bulky, you don't have the hormonal makeup, that's not going to happen. You know, they post memes of like, this isn't what happens when women lift weights, this is what happens, right? Like, okay, so you have a woman who comes to you, she's a general population client, she's like possibly interested in maybe doing a little bit of strength training, but is nervous about it. She's got some weight loss goals, whatever. So she comes to you and says, hey, Ben, I'm interested in working out. I need to lose some weight. I see that, your clients lift weights or whatever, but I'm afraid I'm going to get bulky. And if you look at her and say, hey, Sally, that's really stupid. Women can't get bulky. You don't have the hormonal makeup and whatever. So she came to you. She was vulnerable enough to walk into a gym, to hire you as her coach, to tell you what her goals are, to tell you how she feels about her body. And the first thing that you say to her is that a long-held belief she has is stupid. How do you think she's going to feel? How do you think that learning center of her brain, what's going to happen? She's going to shut down, right? And especially if she's had that experience in the past. What if she started lifting weights in high school with her soccer team and she didn't change her eating habits and her body got bigger? Well, now she thinks that you don't know what you're talking about. So when it comes to these kind of beliefs that people have, these experiences that they've had, these words that they cling to, that they feel really strongly about. I mean, I'd say if you have clients that say that about their behavior, they've fallen off the wagon, then they're probably clinging to that. So I think coming in and saying like, you can't say this is stupid, there isn't, whatever, is not necessarily the right approach. But I think saying, hey, I've run a lot of these 8-week challenges or stuff with my clients. One topic that always comes up is falling off the wagon. I understand that that's a really kind of challenging experience that a lot of you all have had. You feel like you've been on a diet roller coaster. You're on the wagon, you're off the wagon. Let me tell you why I think the wagon doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So saying, I hear where you're coming from. You've probably had this experience before. This is probably a story that you've told yourself over and over again. Again, people say that all the time. They've probably been on and off the wagon for 15 years. So just coming in and saying you can't say that without giving a lot of explanation or context to it, I think feels a little bit militant and confusing. But coming in and saying, hey, a lot of people say this. let me tell you why I don't like that phrase. Let me tell you why I think that that mindset is actually limiting for a lot of people, because it makes them feel like they're on or they're off, they're good or they're bad, kind of thing. So I think addressing it from the very beginning and explaining to your community why you don't like that phrase and why you feel like it's limiting or damaging for your client's long-term success, and saying, like, if you feel like this happened, then I want you to come in and say this. Tell the group that this is what happened, and we'll step in and give you advice or whatever.
That is firstly good to hear. Secondly, that would be the approach that I would tend to take anyway. I suppose for me as a coach, I pride myself on giving as much context as humanly possible. For example, my coaching group yesterday, I talked about me being under the weather and what happens to me when I feel great. I could be led down a path where I'll take a lot of negative actions. So I take a couple of not so great actions so that it doesn't get really negative. And I talk to them about going to a petrol station and buying 2 White Monsters and 2 sugar-free electrolyte drinks. And I said, these drinks are not perfect, but if I don't have these drinks, I'll crave sugar all day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sip these drinks throughout the day because I don't feel great and I've got cravings for sugar. That is going to have a very minimal impact on my health compared to what I could have done if I'd not put that control mechanism in place. And
you changed your environment to make sure that you were engaging in certain behaviors and not engaging in other behaviors.
Because I just know how my body works, and I just listen. I'll be honest. I take a minute or two to plan and say, right, I just need to readjust a few things today because it's, I'm going to get caught out. And I think if people can learn from that and just be a little bit more honest with themselves, I just think that's a beautiful place to be in. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Molly, I'm going to put you on the spot and say that at some point in the future, I feel we need to do a part 2 show. It's coming up to us having an hour together. So I want to put a close to the show and respect your time. Otherwise, I'll have you here till 8 o'clock tonight. So if you would come on again at some point, I think that would be awesome. We'll let the diary sort that out, and whenever you've got a slot, because I know you're a very busy lady. Right, we've mentioned Girls Gone Strong. I can imagine Facebook, Twitter, all over the internet, if someone put that in, they'll find you.
They will, yeah. So we've got girlsgonestrong.com. We've got a Facebook page. Even better, we have Facebook communities. So we have 3 different communities. One called Strong Women Lift Each Other Up, which is really cool. That one is kind of more of a like general population, anyone who's interested in health and wellness. We have Strong Mom Sisterhood for moms and moms to be, and we have our Coaching and Training Women, which is for health and fitness professionals who want to better understand how to understand, connect with, and serve their women clients. So that would be we post a ton on our Girls Gone Strong Facebook page. We publish 2 to 3 new articles every single week. Like you said, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably bordering on thousands of articles on the site. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. I am on those things too, but the Girls Gone Strong, most of my energy goes into feeding that. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So find
Molly,
us, check us out.
They will. People, go check Molly's work out. It's fantastic. Molly, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job. I've seen your work on and off throughout the years. And you can tell you're doing an amazing job because the amount of other sort of businesses and mantras that have popped up around the kind of theme of Girls Gone Strong is colossal. Here in the UK...
You've noticed that too?
I have, yes. Which is why I wanted to check that if I put Girls Gone Strong into social, you don't get bazillions of other things, which you kind of do here or there. But I think people will pick up on the fact that your profiles are pretty big and they'll probably stand out on the social when they put that in. So thank you for your time again today. People, if you see this on social media, please share it. Please tag a friend in that you think can benefit from this show because, something's going to resonate with them. If you want to get in touch with Molly, then please do reach out to her, say hello, find out where her communities are, sign up to her email address, get the good stuff that Molly provides. Molly, thanks again.
Thank you, Ben, so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I can tell why this show's so popular, why you've had so many great people on it. So thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back for part 2, and I'll see you soon.
Sweet. Right, you've heard it there, everyone. Look out for part 2 when that will be. Who knows? Otherwise, in the meantime, you all stay awesome, and I will see you next week. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Thanks for the Radio, episode number 273.